Welcome, everyone, to session 2 of the Ohio Fly Tying Guild. I'm Gary Begley. I'd like to thank you for showing up. Thanks for tuning in. And program this evening, we're going to start off with some knots. Yeah, we all tie knots when we tie the flies. I might have two or three techniques to show you that you may not be aware of. And we'll get into tying hopper legs with pheasant tail fibers, pheasant tail barbs, I should say. And then we're going to need a fly to tie those legs onto. So I've got a hopper pattern planned. I call it a no-name hopper because it doesn't have a name. You got 5 different ways to tie a half hitch. You need to know two, as far as I'm concerned, for a couple of different instances with flies. And one of the other ones is it's really unique. I'm really anxious to show you that one. And starting off basic with the basic, your thread started. All right, just a basic half hitch with half hitch tool. I've got a whole set from years gone by, which I never use anymore. 3 different diameter holes here, 3 different diameter holes here. So I got 6 different ones to match different sizes of hook eyes. And when I do need to use one, I just use the one that's on the end of my bodkin. Most bodkins have one of those. So that's simply wrap a thread around the bodkin or the tool and slide it off. Or you could go like that, which serves the exact same purpose. Now, what if we keep it on there? What if we didn't want to bother to stop and pick up a tool? Can we do it by hand? Sure. 1 finger half hitch. So it does exactly the same thing. Now, the one that I find fairly unique, and there's a couple of videos on YouTube that show how to do this. 2 fingers on the thread. Bring my fingers horizontal. They're actually running parallel with the hook shank. Bring my thread over here, and I formed the X with my thread. I'm going to come down inside that bottom part of that and slide it off, and there's a half hitch. This one, I find I have to tighten it in both directions, but that works pretty well. The thread over underneath and up to the hook eye. Now this bobbin company, right, RITE, right bobbin, they have made a particular bobbin that's tapered down toward the tip in order to facilitate that knot. I don't know if they created it or exactly where the knot came from or that technique, but that's pretty neat little technique as far as I'm concerned. Now let's see. I've got some knots there. Let's switch to a different situation. What if we were tying a fly somewhere? This is actually an unfinished one of the hopper. If we want to tie a half hitch here, which is where I'm going to tie some materials in, okay, our good old half hitch tool just isn't going to do very good. So we can use two fingers on a thread and do a 2-finger half hitch. Now that I went ahead and put the rubber legs on to show you this. We got this loop of thread here. Might grab some of these materials and once I have a wing on here, could become a problem. So in order to alleviate that, I started years ago using a bodkin. Started off this way. Put my bodkin in there. Now I can control that. I can slide it in under materials if need be, but that keeps it from getting caught on other materials. Now, show you what I've developed over the years. I tie with my scissors generally in hand anyway. So why not just add the bodkin? That way I can get to my scissors. I can get to the bodkin. So I can just go like that. And that way my bodkin's already there. And I can just slide it right down. Now, you can do the same thing instead of using the bodkin. You can do the same thing with scissors. However, my scissors are, you see where it started to spray the thread there already. The scissors I like to use, I really love them. They have serrated edges. And if I try to use my scissors to do it, about 40–50% of the time I end up cutting my thread. So I just opted for, see the bobbin. I just opted to use the bobbin, and it works really well for me. Everybody has a question along the way or comment, let me know.
Show me the way you hold your bobkin and the scissors again.
Okay. This is generally the way I hold my scissors always, and I've just gotten in the habit of holding the bodkin in there to slide it underneath the scissors. And slide that there. And then when I do the 2-finger half hitch, I just run to keep the bodkin up by my index finger. I'll just go ahead and do one here. Get my fingers out of there, and I can just pull it down with the bodkin.
We call that the Begley at Hastings.
Okay, well, that'll work. Do some whip finishes. I'll show you a way. There's 4 different ways to tie a whip finish. One of them is basically a demonstration. It's a real good muted everyone. If you want to say something, you'll have to unmute yourself. All right. Whip finish. A proper whip finish, the turns are tight touching turns headed toward the hook eye. 3 to 5 turns. 2, 3, 4. I'll do 5. Oh, now this method, I've seen this used. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that, gang. I know a shortcut to mute everyone, but apparently it didn't mute everyone. Okay. I've seen Dave Whitlock on a video use this and describe it as a method to tie a proper whip finish to finish off a fly. This is actually the method that we used in a rod building class that I took many years ago. Put this thread up through this loop. But this illustrates the whip finish really well. The working thread is what would be coming out of the bobbin, is pulled underneath those wraps that I made. That's an actual whip finish. Now, get my thread started back on here. Another way to illustrate it is using the good old whip finish tool. Wrap rearward a little bit so I got some room to back forward. Look in there, around here. 4, 5, I'm going to do 5. 3 is sufficient. And you can see right there's the 5 wraps that I put in going from here out. And this is going to pull the working thread underneath all those wraps. Works really well. Actually, I don't use head cement anymore for the flies that I fish with. A properly tightened down whip finish is all. I've found that's all you really need. Now, one other way, 2 other ways actually. You can do a whip finish with your tool, your half hitch tool, but you got to go 3 in a row, and that will give you a whip finish. not quite as easy to control for me. One of the first classes, actually, it wasn't a class, it was a little seminar that I took, and we did fly tying and we did some weighting techniques and some equipment and such. But anyway, the guys that was doing the fly tying said, well, three whip finish or three half hitches. One, two is a whip finish. And no, it's not. That's three half hitches. If you're going to do three around the half hitch tool, you got to go like that. All right. Of course, we need to be able to do the whip finish by hand. Bodkin back in with my scissors. I like to start off underneath. And pull down. Yeah, when I use the bodkin to tie off in front, I can actually slide it underneath hackle and such. We got real good control with the bodkin. Off we'll go to tying hopper legs with pheasant tail fibers, pheasant tail barbs, I should say. The best method that I have found is using the tool actually made for it. Al Beatty has a video of this on YouTube, and I'll show you. My wife looked at the tool that I have and said, "Oh, well, why do you have a latch hook tool?" I said, "Well, I don't. I have a leg tying tool." And she produced this and says, "No, here it is. It's a latch hook crochet needle." Okay. Well, mine's a lot smaller, as you can see, and it works really well. It's got this gate that opens and closes. And the method that I get pretty decent results is just pull this around, hold this in my tips of my index finger and thumb, leave my gate open, put this in, pull it around, grab it where I want the knot to be, and there's a hopper leg. I like to cut these off instead of yanking them off. There's little white fuzzies out here on the end, cause problems sometimes, but you can maneuver the knot just a little bit and get things twisted around the way you like. But that's going to work for a pretty darn good hopper leg.
Which end do you tie onto the fly?
This would be the feet down here. I usually end up cutting those off some, but I tie this right onto the side of the fly. I'll show you that in just a bit when we actually tie one. But this is pretty simple. I'm going to be brave tonight and try to do another one live on camera. I'll bend this around, latch open, bodkin goes in, twist around, grab that, and pull down. This goes right on the side of the body of the hopper, and that would be the feet. All right. I'll go ahead and get started on the hopper pattern. Show you the pattern. That's it right there. It's a no-name hopper because I couldn't think of a name for it. I could probably best describe it by this is a combination of various techniques that I've learned from various other fly patterns. If I had to give someone credit for it, which I probably should, there's a guide out west, Walter Weezy is his name, and he came up with a fly pattern. It's a GFA. It's called hopper, GFA, General Foam Attractor. And the body that I'm using, the way I use the 2 millimeter foam for the body is very similar to what he does. So I'll just give him credit for it. I'll say it's a variant from the GFA hopper. But you can see there's my rubber leg, or my rubber leg. I do have rubber legs, but also have the hopper leg tied in. You can see the feet end down there, and the thicker end is up on the side of the fly. 2 millimeter foam for the bulk of the body. There is dubbing underneath there. I'll show you how to blend dubbing. I'm going to take two different kinds and make one dubbing, which I think is more appropriate for this. And I got some bleached deer hair for the wing. And I got this fluorescent green stuff. We're going to use fluorescent pink tonight. Is a sighter, or I call it a fly finder. That large of a pattern, I usually don't have problems seeing on the stream. But as your fly's going downstream and it's going in and out of various light conditions, sometimes it can be a bit of a chore to locate your fly. I find that helps some sort, like chartreuse, fluorescent chartreuse, fluorescent pink, fluorescent yellow, whatever color that your eyes are going to be able to pick out in the various light conditions would be what I would recommend.
Yeah, can you rotate that fly, Gary?
No, because that's a picture on a second PC. Hold on just a minute, and I'll put that one in. Same fly, and I'll zoom in a little bit. There we go. So you can see the hopper legs that I just demonstrated, and I've got dubbing underneath here. Hopper patterns and just foam body patterns in general, I think look better if you put either peacock herl, or in this case, it's going to be dubbing underneath there. I think that just looks buggier than just a bare hook with some thread wraps going around. And we got the wing and the foam body. What did you see what you was wanting to see, the Jim?
Not yet. I was wanting to see it from the top view.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I purposely, you could tie the upper legs in so they're tighter in. I like them out like this. Every little spot that's going to tick the water, I like as far as bass fishing goes. Which is, of course, this would work good for a trout fly as well. But when I see a fly like this, I think smallmouth bass. And you always got to remember what the fish see. You'll see a lot of hopper patterns, and they'll have underwing, and they'll have another wing, and they'll have some flash on top. And then you got to keep in mind, guys, what do the fish see? They see that. So I'll get this one out of the vise, and we'll get started. Tying one.
Yeah, the reason I was wanting to see that from the top was from the side, it looked like it had a little mohawk. So you can probably call that the mohawk hopper.
Oh, okay. I'll show you a couple different ways to put a fly finder, I'll call it on. Show you a couple different materials to do it with. I need a hook. I'm using a PMC 2312. I'm using a size 8. You could go from size 14 up to size probably 6. Just depends on the size of the hoppers in your area or the area you're fishing. This might be taken for a stonefly too. I don't claim to be an expert on what the fish are hitting the fly for. All right, so we need to get a thread base on here. This particular fly, I like to come back a little bit beyond the straight part of the hook shank. Well, actually, this is slightly curved hook shank, but I like to come back at a spot about halfway between the hook point and the barb. And at that point, I like to put a small ball of dubbing right there in order to hold the back portion of the body up just slightly. Is that going to make a difference to the way it fishes? Probably not. Do I like it? Yes. Go over and I'll show you the dubbing that I'm going to use. I'm going to use super fine. You see that better over in the other camera. Here we go. Super fine hand. This is super dubbing for tying dry flies. But that looks sort of bland. I'm going to mix a little bit of Senyo's Labor Dr. Tan in. And I'm going to mix it by hand. You can use a coffee grinder. I'll show you just a little bit. Let's see, hold on. My background is about the same color as my dubbing, so we'll switch to a darker one. Darker background. So I've got about that much. And I'm going to guesstimate about 70-30 percentage, about 30% of the laser dub. And what I'm doing, this is called stacking. Pulling some out, stacking it on top. Pulling some out, stack it on top until it gets blended well. And again, you can do this with a coffee grinder. I don't suggest if you grind your own coffee beans, I don't suggest using the same one for fly tying. And always, here's some that I already have made up. I always like to blend things together, get good consistency with my flies. So there's mixing dubbing by hand. And I think that looks quite a bit better than this dubbing, which again is an excellent dubbing, but it's sort of bland. I like having the sparkles in there. All right, that's the dubbing we're going to use. Turn this sideways so I can get up as close to the hook as I can. I know a majority of tires, and I did for years, they'll put a dubbing noodle on and then they'll slide it up. I've gotten away from doing that. If you think about it, the idea of twisting the dubbing on is to get a connection between the dubbing and the thread. Well, if we dub the dubbing noodle on and we scoot it up, then we just lose that connection. All the things I tell you will be fine-tuning methods. Another thing I'm about dubbing, twisting it on clockwise. If every time we take a turn with the thread, we put a clockwise twist in the thread. If we've got a good connection between the dubbing and the thread, perhaps that's going to tighten the dubbing up just a little bit more. Probably all of us have started dubbing, got part way through the fly, and then dubbing starts to come loose. We need to twist it back on tighter. Maybe that was the issue. Just a little bit more. Another thing, I like to add dubbing before I run out. The simple fact I don't like to run bare thread through my dubbing. This instance probably wouldn't make a difference because the thread is pretty close to the same color as the dubbing. All right, there's our dub body with a little bit of a ball back here. Kind of get the back part of that foam a lift, so to speak. Now, next step, you need to get the foam body on. Just 2mm foam, generally rule of thumb about the width of the hook gape. Distance between, I used another term, distance between here to here is the hook gap, we usually call it. I'm starting to hear more and more people, more and more tires refer to it as hook gape. And if you think about it, if you look up the definition, gape is probably more accurate. So if you hear somebody say hook gape, you'll know what they're talking about. All right, find that down for four pretty decent turns. Now I got to be careful. I want to compress the foam, but I don't want to go too far. Too much tension, I'll cut it. Especially with the thread I'm using. I'm using 70 denier thread, which is pretty close to most brands 8/0. Fairly light thread, and it's because of the way I'm going to finish the fly up. Is why I want a thinner thread. I need to put some body segments in here. That was by fishing glue I used. Just any sort of super glue is going to be fine. Come back for the first segment. There's some crossing over up top, so it won't be visible underneath. So over to this back one. About where the hook point is, I think. Okay, there's my body segment. All right. At that point, we need to tie in some upper legs. Got a pair here that I made earlier. I'll leave that probably the knee of it. This would be the knee, and this would be the feet. The way I look at it, I'm going to put the knee about the length of the same length as the end of the tail. Or into the body section, I should say, maybe just a slight bit longer in this case. All right, so there's one. And there's two. Now I'm going to cross over, hold this up, bind it down a second time, as well as the other side. I don't really think one wrap or one section of thread would be enough to make that very secure. I feel much better with it this way. Not going to make much difference in the way it fishes, I don't think. Pull that to there. Take another wrap. Get rid of my excess. All right, so there's the start of the body and the upper legs, rubber legs right here. You can use any kind of rubber legs that you like. I happen to have, I'm using small size, usually medium is the size we use. Centipede legs, speckled yellow, small, a little bit smaller diameter than what we usually use, which is a medium size. Looks like this. I like to slide these in between the vise and the thread. Pick the thread up, bring it over to the near side, run it back through. In between the vise and the leg, or in the thread, pull it up, pulling that on, pull that. Get these adjusted for length. A little bit shorter than I would if it didn't have the upper legs. Cross over, bind them down here. Go ahead and cut that loop. We'll have four rubber legs. And you can adjust them and get them angled in whatever direction you wish, up, down. forth. Want to get them even. You just pull both of them up. Cut them off at the same length. So there's my upper legs and my 4 rubber legs. Let's go over where I've got my deer here. And probably most of you have worked with deer here before in a stacker. I'll just go ahead and show the procedure. I'm going to slide my scissors in. I'm going to sparse wing. Cut this off down close. I need to clean out all the under fuzz here, if you will. I'm going to spread these out. Just kind of go back and forth. Reach in, pull out some small ones. Didn't have a lot of the fuzz that I spoke about in this one. All right, goes into a hair stacker. And it really doesn't take much. I usually just bang it against my hand. Double check, make sure I got a decent stack. Yep, I do. Put it back up in. Restack just a little bit, head over to the vise. I'm going to open this so the tips are going the direction that I want them to, meaning toward the rear of the hook. All right. Get this measured for length. I'm wanting the wing to be about the same length as the foam back here. So I'm going to measure that. I'm going to cut it off real close. Something about cutting off hair like this, even with serrated scissors. And one of the big deals about serrated scissors, they'll grab onto the material and won't let it push away like that. Shove it right up. I'm going to angle it in just slightly. That way I get a good even cut. Now, 2 things I'm going to do here. I'm going to spin my thread counterclockwise. Wrap my thread around just the hair. Slide it down. I got my index finger on the other side on the side of the hook. I'm trying to avoid thread torque, taking this wing around on the other side of the hook. 3, 4 good wraps. Flared up my hair. Got a nice wing. Now, if you think about it, I've only got thread actually touching the outer perimeter of the hair. And there's a lot of hair in the center. It doesn't have any thread on it. So I'm going to go through these butt ends here. And I'm going to get some thread on a lot more hair. I think it's going to make it much more secure. Okay, now we'll fold this over to form the head section. All right, got it bound down, but not too tight. Where my foam ripped, I like to come in, push the hair down with my scissors, come in, trim this off. I don't think this will make a darn bit of difference in the water, but I like to cut these corners off. Looks better to me. Now, we're almost finished. We just need to put the fly finder on, I'll call it. Just something bright colored that you'll be able to notice on stream. Help you locate your fly. This is just a piece of 2mm foam, got real thin. I think it's an 1/8 of an inch, if I remember right. It's almost a square. You can just put this in. I'm going to spin my thread slightly. Bind that down like that. And then cut this off at whatever length you like. Now I'll be able to spot that a lot easier under certain light conditions than if I didn't have that on there. I'm going to show you another way to do that same thing, basically. Go right back to my hair. The extra long ones. I'll fold it around this way. Come up. Pull straight down on top in the center. Pull it tight through the middle of it again. All straight up. And chop it off fairly close. And there's just a different way of tying on a fly finder. And what finish right here. I've seen a lot of tires will just kind of zip their thread back over here in front of the hook eye. And then do a whip finish at the hook eye. But the thread that's going from here over to the hook eye, if that gets chipped off, I'm afraid they're going to lose what they had tied previously. Return whip finish. And this is why I decided to use 7D denier thread as opposed to 140. Because I don't want to build up a lot of bulk right here on top of that fly pawn. Bring this a little bit better. Should have trimmed this down just a little bit tighter, but this is going to work just fine. All right, so there's the fly. Any questions? Any comments? I don't know about anybody else, but I really like the fish hopper patterns when I can get bass to come up to the surface.
Good looking fly.
Yeah. Like I say, I can't really claim it as an original pattern because there's so many techniques from other patterns that I've just kind of brought together the ones I like. So that's what we have planned for this evening. And thanks for tuning in. And please like and subscribe and share.
All right, thanks, Gary.